Imagine if your life gets stuck in a loop where you live and die over and over again. On top of that, dangerous people are chasing you. This is exactly what's happening to Roy. He has lived the same day many times, so he already knows what will happen next. Today's movie is Boss Level 2020. Each day, he deals not only with one man, but also with a man in a helicopter carrying a machine gun who comes to greet him with a good morning. Roy fights back and stabs him with a knife. Roy takes a moment to look at a photo of his ex-wife. Just before an explosion, he jumps out and lands on a truck. But things don't always go as planned. Every day, Roy also steals a car from the same man. No matter what happens, Roy keeps fighting to survive another loop. In a hurry to escape, Roy was driving fast when something unusual happened. The screen showed he had already survived 79 attempts at this deadly loop. By now, Roy understood that someone wanted to kill him. Along the way, women would shoot at him, or sometimes a dwarf would blow him up with bombs. Then there was a sword-fighting girl named Guan-Yin, who proudly announced her name before killing him every single time. To make things worse, Roy also had to deal with his lookalike, who was determined to end him. Roy believed his ex-wife, Gemma, held the answers to all his questions. So, he tried calling her, but her boss, Vinter, answered the phone instead. Vinter has a massive, raging machine. He tells Joy that Gemma died last night. Roy realized that his ex-wife Gemma had died in an accident even before his time loop began. This broke him emotionally, but the dangerous people chasing him didn't even let him grieve. The next day, as usual, Roy sped his car to escape, trying to stay alive. Somehow, he managed to snatch a grenade launcher from the women chasing him and used it against them, blowing them up with their own weapon. After that, Roy reached his favorite diner, where he took a moment to eat. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Dave, who works at a security company, and Daifeng, the famous Chinese swordswoman, who also happened to be nearby. While sipping his drink, Roy noticed it was 12:47 p.m. Suddenly, all his enemies gathered to kill him, shooting him. The story then flashes back to the day before the time loop began. Roy had gone to Gemma's office to apply for a job in the security department. However, it was revealed that the office didn't need security, but Gemma did. She acted strangely and even cut a few strands of Roy's hair. Then she asked if Roy had received the birthday gift she sent him. Then Gemma whispered something important in his ear just before 3 guards entered the scene. They reached there and sent Joy outside. After Joy left, Gemma's boss, Vinter, warned her that the project they are working on was a top-secret project. He told her not to bring in her ex-lovers just like that. Around 3 a.m., a girl named Alice, who is a dentist, was sitting in a bar with Roy. After she went to the bathroom, the bartender casually told Roy that while he could have fun with her, the love in her eyes was for someone else. Just then, Roy received a call from Gemma. She was working on Roy's hair sample and told him she needed his help with something he was best at. Saying this, she walked towards the machine. Since Vinter and his hybrid security system were watching and listening to everything, Vinter ordered to caught Gemma. The next morning, when Roy woke up, the day had already started. Following Gemma's instructions, he searched for the birthday gift she had given him. It was a book called Iset and Osiris. However, before he could read it, a helicopter arrived with a man wielding a machine gun and killed Roy. Roy's life is like old phone restarting again and again. Next day, he went to the underground gaming store with Gemma's gifted book. When he read the book, he discovered that Iset was about the wife of an Egyptian leader named Osiris. In the final chapter, Gemma had written that time waits for no one. Unfortunately, Roy didn't find anything useful in the book. Suddenly, his attention turned to his son, Joe, but it seemed Joe didn't know that Roy is his father. Roy was spending time with his son and felt happy being with him. To make it more special, he decided to take him out for pizza. As they stepped out, the Joy noticed the clock showing 12:50, and it was the first time Roy had stayed alive for so long. He realized it was because they were in an underground area where he couldn't be tracked. Suddenly, a gang appeared, and Roy understood that danger had found him again. Roy protected his son from gunfire and, with his last breath, confessed that he was his real father. In his final moments, Roy saw a glimpse of love in his son's eyes. After restarting the cycle, Roy woke up with renewed determination. He confronted the man and asked where the tracking device was placed. Determined to find the tracker, Roy searched his body and clothes but found nothing. Then he approached a security officer eating noodle soup and asked where someone would hide a tracker in a body. The officer suggested the most suggested spot is inside a tooth. Hearing this, Roy rushed to the washroom and began pulling out his teeth. Luckily, he found the tracker inside his second tooth. Just then, his lookalike appeared but managed to shoot Roy. In the next attempt, attempt, Roy prepared himself for the washroom encounter with a new strategy. Roy removed the tracking device and used it to locate and take down each gang member one by one. During this, someone got a call from another gang member, Brett. Roy answered the phone, and Brett challenged him to come in lab if he had the courage. Unafraid, Roy decided to face him. In his first attempt, Roy drove straight toward Brett's lab, but crashed his car into a wall and was killed by Brett. In the next attempt, he went with his car into the lab. When guards come near his car, Roy had rigged the car with explosives. It was a trap made by Roy. He then killed his lookalike and took his security badge. Initially, the badge didn't work, but after he managed to open the lab door. However, Brett and his men were already waiting outside. Realizing Roy couldn't win, he decided to end the loop and try again. In the next attempt, knowing the gang would expect him at the main entrance, he sneaked from the side and killed everyone. Moving forward, he encountered Guan-Yin, who was dangerous swordwoman, but Roy had a gun. When he pulled the trigger, it was empty. Overconfident, Roy lost the fight and was killed by her in a single blow. No matter how many times Roy tried, Guan-Yin defeated him easily in every attempt. In one attempt, Venter even managed to capture Roy alive before killing him. Revealed the truth about his top-secret project. The machine, called the Osiris Spindle, had the power to change the history. Unknowingly, it was the reason for Roy being stuck in a time loop. Without Venter realizing it, Gemma had secretly used Roy's DNA in the machine, which made him not killable as long as his DNA remained in it. Venter was unaware of this, which is why he openly explained the machine to Roy. Roy reread the book Gemma had gifted him on his birthday and realized how much she believed in him, so he decided to overcome the challenges. However, Guan-Yin was still in his way. In his next attempt, instead of fighting her, Roy went to Noodle House. There, he convinced a sword master to teach him swordsmanship. The master agreed to teach him for one day, saying she is there for only one day. Roy trained daily during each loop, gradually mastering the skill. By his 174th attempt, he was fully prepared. Roy confronted Guan-Yin with his new sword skills. He put his gun down, picked up a sword, and showcased incredible swordsmanship, finally defeating her. Just as Venter and his men arrived, Roy used his sword to stop them. Before Venter could reach for his gun, Roy swiftly disarmed and overpowered him. Venter realized that Roy's seemingly endless power came from the machine, trapping him in a time loop. Venter then revealed a devastating truth. While Roy was busy fighting, Venter had arranged for his son, Joe, to be killed. Heartbroken, Roy rushed to Joe but found him already dead. Roy initially gave up in grief, letting himself be killed repeatedly. However, one day he decided he had had enough. If he couldn't change the loop, he would spend every day with Joe, playing games and spending their time together. Each day ended with them sitting on a bench before the loop reset. One evening, Joe told Roy about a call he received from his mother that morning. It was Gemma, and tells him that he could share everything with Joy. This sparked hope in Roy to fight back once more. Roy realized from Joe's words that Gemma was still alive, and he had one last chance to save her. In the next attempt, he quickly eliminated Venter before heading to the camera room. There, he discovered that Gemma was alive for 15 minutes after he woke up every morning. This gave him hope. Without wasting time, he shot himself to reset the loop and prepare to save Gemma. The next morning, Roy put his plan into action. He jumped straight onto the helicopter and captured the pilot. Using the helicopter's machine gun, he wiped out all his enemies as he made his way to the location where Gemma was supposed to die. At the critical moment, Roy come in and ended Venter, saving Gemma's life. The two finally confessed their love for each other. In the final scene, Roy turned toward the Osiris Spindle to break the time loop and live his life freely again. What's the most beautiful day of your life that you'd relive again and again if you could? Let us know in the comments.